Pat's draft recap. Let's take a look at what they did in round one.
Nothing.
The shell has spoken!
All jokes aside, I'm going to be real with you guys. I'm not the biggest college football expert. I only really, especially last year, I only really watched the big games, bowl games, and the playoffs. So I do all my draft research after we picked them. I didn't know the most about any of the guys the Patriots drafted until after they had drafted them. And my reaction is pretty much based off of how the media feels about them. And from what I could gather, they were pretty happy about most of the picks. I think the biggest takeaway from the draft was it's Stidham's offense. They didn't pick a QB in any of the rounds. They signed someone else after the fact, but he's not going to start or fight for it. But basically, by not drafting a QB in this draft, and they could have. They had a first round pick that they traded out of. There were guys there in the second and third rounds that they didn't take. Basically, what Bill Belichick was saying is that he doesn't think that any of the quarterbacks in that draft where they could have picked are better than Stidham. And it's also a vote of confidence for Stidham. And again, if that's who Bill Belichick, the greatest coach of all time, is putting his confidence in, then I'm with it. I'm on board. I tweeted this out the other day. I swear to God, if I see one more person say that Stidham sucks because of the pick six he threw in the Jets game last season, I'm going to lose my mind. To judge someone's talent or playing capabilities off of one poor throw is preposterous. I swear if that play didn't happen, if the ball was incomplete or Jamal Adams fucking dropped the ball, half of Patriots Twitter who says they don't like him or they're not confident in him, they wouldn't say anything. They take the extremely small sample size that he played. I'm pretty sure he threw 4 passes last season. They take that and they see the pick and they say he sucks or he can't play. I don't understand that thought process. I never will. And I'm not saying he's going to be a stud. I'm just saying give the kid a real shot. Give him time to work with the system, to be part of the offense, give him real games to play in, and then we can make an assessment and be judgmental. We just haven't seen enough to have a strong opinion one way or another. And, I know scouts really like him, and I liked what I saw in the preseason last year, but it's the preseason. That's not enough to project on how good a guy is. This draft was very telling that it's Stidham's job going forward. It was also interesting that they didn't pick a wide receiver. Again, a lot of this video is going to be me regurgitating what media members were saying who know a lot more on the subject than I do. But according to them, this was the deepest wide receiver class in quite some time. And the fact that they didn't take one at any point in any of the 7 rounds was interesting. I found a quote from Bill that was very interesting. This is coming from, I'm reading a tweet from Zach Cox, so credit to him. He tweeted out, he said on not drafting a receiver, we spent a first round pick on N'Keal Harry last year and a second round pick on Sanu. We obviously have Julian and a number of young players. I think that'll be a very competitive group. And I saw somewhere else, I lost the tweet, I couldn't find it. But I saw someone else say that Bill also said that he's hopeful that a lot of those young guys can improve in their second year, including N'Keal and guys like Gunnar and Jacoby Myers. And that's a good way to look at it. They did spend a first on N'Keal, and they did spend a second on Sanu. And both of those guys were banged up last year, and I don't think they were playing to their full potential. And we'll see if they improve this year. I don't think they're as terrible as a lot of fans make it out to be at wide receiver. They're definitely not up there, and they're definitely not top in the league by any means, but they're not bottom of the barrel terrible either. I also saw after the draft, they signed free agent, former Auburn wide receiver, Will Hastings. He played with Stidham in 2017. He did pretty good, tore his ACL in 2018. And then that's when Stidham got drafted. I know he's a slot guy. And that's further evidence that Stidham is going to get the job, because I don't think you would get a former teammate of his to, this is assuming he makes the team, but you wouldn't go out and get a guy like that if Stidham wasn't the starter. You know what I mean? But anyways, on to their actual picks. The first pick, at number 37 overall, they took safety Kyle Duggar. And Patriots Twitter and all the social media GMs were big mad about this one because he's a D2 player. That to me, I don't really care. If he's talented, if he can play, I'll take him. I don't care if he played in Division 2 or Division 15. It doesn't matter. I am aware that he won Defensive Player of the Year for D2, and that's clearly telling to me that he is talented enough to have played in D1. So I don't see why the division really matters. If he's talented, then I want him. I saw some people complain that it was a reach or they took him too early. I can understand that complaint, but just because they took him at a certain spot, I wouldn't call it a bad pick, because if he's going to be a stud, like, does it matter where he got picked? And if the Patriots really believed in him and they wanted him that bad, and they wanted to make sure that they did end up picking him, then I don't have an issue with maybe reaching earlier than he would have normally gone. And then with their next picks, they took Josh Uch. I'm not quite sure how to say his last name. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. Out of Michigan, and Anthony Jennings out of Alabama. A couple of linebackers. It was a position of need. The consensus from media members is that they're both very explosive and hybrid players, very athletic. And for a team that just lost Kyle Van Noy and Jamie Collins, it sounds like it's a good fit. I figured they were going to take a tight end at some point in this draft, and they took Devin Asiasi out of UCLA. I looked at his highlight tape, and the guy can catch some passes. From what I could tell, he's a good route runner, he has good hands, and he's good at bouncing off tackles. And then with their next pick, they actually traded up for this one. They took another tight end. They took Dalton Keene out of Virginia Tech. And again, I looked at his highlight tape. He can catch balls too. He's good in the open field, but he's also a very good run blocker. Again, according to media members. But I thought it was interesting that they just took a tight end and they traded up to get another one. And this makes sense, I guess, to take two, coming from a team who ranked dead last in tight end production last year. But I wonder how much they're both going to play. I'm all for bringing back the two tight end sets and having them run a lot of routes each game. I'm aware that's not usually how it works with tight ends. They don't usually make an immediate impact, but I feel like with the Patriots, considering how weak they are at that position, it wouldn't surprise me if that standard doesn't really apply here. So it seems like they both can catch passes and run block. It seems like Keene is better at the run blocking part and Asiasi is better at the pass catching part, but they both can do both. The next pick that social media GMs were mad at was the 5th round kicker pick. I'm going to try and say his last name correctly. Bear with me. Justin Rohrwasser. Rohrwasser. I probably said it right at least once there. But people were mad that they took a kicker too early. I don't get that. They were mad that it wasn't different kickers. And they acted like this guy sucked. And I had people actually tweeting at me like just straight out lies that he only makes 70% of his kicks or his longest field goal was 40 yards. These were actual things that people were commenting at me on social media. I don't know why people feel the need to just lie like that. A simple Google search or ESPN check is going to make you look dumb. So I don't understand what is the point there? Are you just trying to inflict fear in people that they just drafted a bad kicker? But anyways, his stats were pretty good. His last year, I'm doing this off the top of my head. I think this is right. I'll fact check it in the video. I think he went 18 for 21. I think it was 5 for 6 from 40 to 49 yards. And then 2 for 2 from 50 plus. And one of the 50 plus ones was a 53-yarder to win the game. High pressure situation. There were also people mad that he's part of some gun right group and he has an iffy tattoo. We all have our own political beliefs, right? I don't think, unless whatever he's doing or whatever he's into, I don't think unless it's actively harming people or is just downright offensive, like if he's spray painting swastikas on the side of Patriots training facility, I don't think it really matters what he's into off the field. If he can make kicks and not cause issues or hurt people off the field, I don't really care what he does. The way I look at it is they needed a kicker. It was an issue for a great part of last year. They desperately needed one, and they addressed that need in the 5th round. People acted like they spent a 2nd round pick on a kicker. It was the 5th round. If they wanted the guy, again, they took him. I was hoping they would spend that pick on Ohio State wide receiver KJ Hill. He dipped really, really down low in the draft, but whatever. It is what it is. And then with their later picks, they took a couple of offensive linemen and another linebacker. Offensive line was another need. If they can develop these guys to fit the system, I'm all in. Overall, I'm not going to give a grade. 1, because I think grades are stupid, and I'll explain why in a second. But 2, like I said, I'm not exactly qualified to do so. Everything I know about these guys came from researching over the past 48 hours, and I'm no college football expert. So I don't feel like it would be genuine for me to give a grade on something I'm not fully qualified to give a grade on. But anyways, I think draft grades are stupid because you don't know how any of the players are going to pan out. Like, for example, I hope Joe Burrow does awesome. I love that kid. But let's just say, obviously people are like, oh, that's an A-plus pick. Like, it's Joe Burrow. But let's just say he sucks. And let's just say he's terrible. Hypothetically, he's terrible. He's awful. He can't play. And he's out of the NFL within 2-3 years. Then looking back on it, was it an A-plus pick? So I just think that's dumb. Like, I think that applies for all players. And like, you don't really know how good you drafted until you've seen them all play and you've seen them develop and whatever. So really, these grades, like, they don't mean anything. They're just kind of guesses of how good you think players are. But like, they're not legitimate grades because none of them have played a single NFL game yet. If you want to ask me in 3 or 4 years how good I think this draft class ended up, I'll be happy to give you an answer. But right now I can't. All I know is that they've used the picks to fill some of the holes they have, and I'm excited to see how they turned out. I also know that for the most part, the media liked the way the Patriots drafted. I will say, I also really liked how aggressive they were in trading up. They did it like 2 or 3 times. They had a ton of picks, and there's no way they were going to draft 13 guys. But there was a couple instances where they had a guy that they wanted, and they wanted to ensure that they get him, and they had all these picks that they weren't going to use. Why not bundle a couple of those together and move up to make sure you get the guy you want? I thought it was a really good strategy to be aggressive with it. Anyways, yeah, I like that they filled holes, and I know that the media, for the most part, was happy with this draft. I saw a lot of B's being handed out for draft grades for the Patriots. But again, I don't do that. But anyways, what did you guys think of the Patriots draft? Do you think they drafted well? Do you think they didn't? Comment below, let me know. As always, like and subscribe, and yeah.